Texas leaders approve Bible stories as required reading.
A major change is coming to Texas classrooms, but not right away.
Today, the State Board of Education approved requiring reading lists that include Bible stories and passages for Texas public school students, and the vote is already drawing some pretty sharp reaction. Fox 4's Casey Stiegel live in our Dallas newsroom with more on what happens next. Casey.
Hey, good evening, Steve, Heather. This required list goes well beyond Bible stories. It also includes classics, children's books, fables, and historical texts.
That's just a weird ass way to frame it, I gotta say.
Religious readings are what turned today's vote into a much larger fight.
Violates the Establishment Clause.
After hours of debate, Texas education leaders approved a reading requirement that's already heading into political, legal, and religious territory. The State Board of Education passed it Friday in a 9-5 vote. Among the most debated selections, required reading of certain Bible stories for younger students, including David and Goliath, Daniel and the Lion's Den, and Jonah and the Whale.
Children do not need to think that when they go in the water, they might get swallowed by a whale. And if they're in first grade, they very likely have that fear. And I don't think we need to encourage a fear of being in nature or being in the water for our first graders.
What a fucking terrible, awful refutation of this. Like, what?
Yeah.
I just, like, what?
Run it back one time for me. I just want to
I'm
make sure I
sorry,
get all of it.
but this is what they're refuting?
They very likely have that fear, and I don't think we need to encourage a fear of being in nature or being in the water for our first graders.
What?
Because the part of the required reading is the tale of Jonah getting swallowed by the whale, and that's from the Bible. She's worried that children might be afraid to go out in nature and go into the ocean for fear that they might get swallowed by a whale. Now, I would say that's
the guess she had.
That is nothing to do with why this is not okay. You're not supposed to be teaching religion in schools like that. That's just like, what do you mean? That's like saying, like, if they read some other work of fiction, like, you can't do that because they might be afraid of what happens to the characters in that book. It just makes zero fucking sense, and that's absolutely not the problem being presented here. It's the Establishment Clause that you will not have, a state-sanctioned religion. Like, you're not allowed to mix religion with public funding of things. That's like, what?
Well, and this is like, I mean, look, like the Constitution itself doesn't actually like specifically state that there is like a separation of church and state. It goes back to a letter that Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association in 1802, in which he wrote, I actually pulled it up just so that I can make sure that we're on the level here. Jefferson wrote, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people, which declared their legislature should make make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. So like the whole point is that if you're like, maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but when the way I understand what Jefferson was saying in that context is that like, if you give preference to one religion over another, it impedes on your ability to practice the religious provisions provided in the First Amendment, i.e., freedom of religion. right? Like
Right.
you're free by the tenet of the First Amendment. You're allowed to practice any religion you want. They wanted a secular state, and therefore you don't. It's not like it makes sense to then separate the state from any particular church because that would be like an impediment on the ability to practice the First Amendment.
Right.
So that would make it like so it's like by way of, you know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
the idea of church and state is directly derivative from the concept of freedom of religion.
Right. And yeah, like Desi said in the chat, like allow all or allow none, right? So if they're
Right, exactly. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. You can't put one above everything else because if you do so, then it means that that preference will naturally make it more difficult to be of any faith other than the one that is preferred by the government itself. And that's actually actively true right now. With the amount of anti-Semitism, with the amount of Islamophobia, like that's actively the case right now. And I think it
Mhm.
would, like I don't know. That gets into legal territory, but I do think that there's a lot of just generally like unconstitutional behavior of people to be like, I mean, it's like the First Amendment kind of fighting with itself, right? Because it's like, well, you have freedom of speech and you have freedom of religion, but what happens when someone exercising free speech inherently impedes the ability to of another person to feel that they are capable of freely expressing their religion? You
Right.
know what I mean?
Well, and
Like,
then I
just
think the whole problem with this is
creates a
that
weird combination.
the entire problem that I have with it is not that it's like that they're reading them in schools, is that this is like required reading like by the state. Like you have to tell the stories from the Bible to young children. And like if they're gonna do that, then it should be in like a history class or like a mythology class, like next to the Greek pantheon or something like that. Because they tell you plenty of stories about like that type of stuff in history classes, but they don't add it in the same type of mythological context as like modern like still going religions.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, like, I mean, my experience as someone who went through fucking 12 years of public school is that we absolutely learned about religion. Like, what are you talking about? There just wasn't any like emphasis or preference placed on one
Right.
religion over another. It
Like
was
this one
just
is
like,
correct though. Like
hey,
these other
just so you
ones are
guys know this shit
stories.
exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It was just like, okay, here's what this group of people believes, and then here's what this group of people believes, and then here's what this group of people believes. Some of these beliefs do not align with each other. And it existed throughout history in conflict with each other. So you can't even fucking teach history without talking about religion. It's not possible.
Right.
So the idea that, it's like it just simply comes from people that like are of a specific faith, usually Christianity, feeling that there's a certain supremacy to their particular religion, will
Yeah.
then feel like it's tilting against them. You know what I mean? By not saying that what they believe is the truth. So they get real butthurt and snowflakey about it. And
Right.
look, like if your belief is strong enough, if it's that authoritative, if it's that true, then you don't really have anything to be worried about if somebody comes and attacks it, because naturally any intelligent person would just see the validity of your religious beliefs and adopt it. But
Right.
that's not really the case. So the only option that they have is to codify in law that it is the specific truth. So you force people into it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of bitch made in my opinion.
Yeah, and this kind of legislation is brought forth by people that are also bringing legislation like we need to ban Sharia law in like Mississippi, ban it's stupid shit like that. It's the
What
same
happened to the
same type of
marketplace
people.
of ideas, man?
So what?
So what happened to the marketplace of ideas, man?
Yeah, we need the free marketplace of
Ideas.
ideas.
Somebody's got to bring Dave Rubin out. You got to
Yeah.
make Dave Rubin come out here and make the argument for it. Although he's gonna
Like,
fail
listen,
'cause-
as a classical liberal, I think it's totally cool to have biblical ideas being taught to my kids. It's like, all right, well, bring them to church then, dude. Like, what do you want?
It's level ideas.
Like, this is public school. We're like, go to private school. Like, you want to
Exactly. That's what private school is for, dog.
literally, like, you know how many fucking Christian and Catholic and all kinds, like a billion denominations of Christians, like they all have their own schools. You can send your kids to there if you want them to learn about the Bible instead of science class. But
So it was really funny. There was one time where I was working for these guys. It's like a father and son, and we were doing like painting and carpentry stuff. And we spent like a bunch of time working on churches, like rehabbing churches, and we were doing like steeple painting and like, you know, restoring interiors of churches and stuff like that. And I remember one time the son said to me, "Is like, I love working for churches because ain't nobody got more money than God."
yeah,
And I was like, "Yeah, you're not wrong, dog."
yeah, dude, tax free right there. Hell yeah.
That's what I'm saying, dude. But yeah, the point is like, look, like they got plenty of cash. They can fund their schools just fine. You ain't need public dollars to do that shit. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Like, come on. I thought you guys were the big daddies.
Mm-hmm.
School
Where's
and
your
high school students.
prosperity gospel now?
Yeah. We
Anyways.
need Creflo Dollar to run for office, y'all. We need him. We need fucking shit. I was gonna say Pat Robertson, but he died. What the hell was that other dude? Oh man, the blow the COVID away guy.
COVID-19!
COVID-19!
We need him to run for office, clearly.
Joel Osteen?
No, not Tim Allen.
Other biblical passages, including readings from the New and Old Testament, used alongside literary works. Board members say this newly approved list ultimately puts the power in parents' hands.
If mom and dad know what books that they're reading in class, that they can certainly have those discussions or read along.
Not all board members, though, were sold, with some saying teachers should be trusted to choose what their students read.
Wait, so hold on. How is it in the parents' hands if it's mandatory reading? Is what I want to know. Like, they kind of just breezed by that one. Like, what do you mean it's in the parents' hands, but it's mandatory? Like, okay. All right.
You can't have it both ways, man.
Books for decades, for years. This is nothing new. This is not a new concept to teachers. We are simply giving them a mandated list, which I believe is unconstitutional.
Texas Freedom Network, a statewide advocacy group that has long fought over public education and church-state separation issues, released this statement to Fox 4. It reads in part, "It's clear there is a very intentional and heartbreaking attack on religious freedom in the state. More than 5 million Texas public school students will eventually fall under the new reading requirement, but the changes won't be rolled out until 2030.
When you read this, you think like, well, this is just going to happen right away. It's going to happen next week. Well, no, we're talking about a process. We're talking about an implementation process.
Friday's vote approves the list, but it may not end the debate. Critics say the next battle could come in court.
Well, I mean, I think that's why it's set out that far, honestly, is what they want the implementation to be set out so far so that they have a chance to go through all the legal battles that they're going to get over this, is what it sounds like to me, at least.
Well, yeah, there's part of it too. But like, I'm sorry, if this is down to like parents' rights, let me ask you a question. Like, why can't the parents just teach their kids the Bible at home? Isn't that what fucking
Right.
Sunday, like going to Sunday school, going to church on Sundays is for? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so, right?